A government official and his family arrive at a remote village during a torrential storm. They are outsiders, carrying the quiet confidence of the city into a landscape currently being reshaped by a violent monsoon. Bhuvan, the local caretaker, greets them with a warning. Despite the storm, he refuses to step into their car for the drive to the bungalow. He chooses to walk the muddy, winding interior paths alone, leaving the family to follow the river road. The driver follows the river road, while Bhuvan takes the much longer, winding village route. This requires an impossible speed to arrive first. Yet midway through the drive, the family sees a figure matching Bhuvan's description pacing them along the bank. When the car finally reaches the bungalow, Bhuvan is already standing on the porch, dry and waiting, defying the local geography. In this region, when the distance between 2 points ceases to make sense, it suggests the family has moved beyond the reach of conventional logic and into a space governed by different, older laws. Bhuvan issues a single directive: stay away from the windows and do not look at the river after dark. To the family, the river is a scenic amenity. To the caretaker, it is a boundary that must not be monitored. The next morning, the family finds a trail of wet, muddy prints. They start at the water's edge and stop exactly at the threshold of the house. These impressions reveal an impossible anatomy. Here, the pressure points are reversed. The toes point to the river, but the weight pushes toward the house. This trajectory tracks an entity emerging from the water to the door, all while appearing to walk away. By ignoring Bhuvan's warning about the riverbank, the family has allowed an element of the local ecosystem to track them directly to their bedside. The family decides to prepare a traditional meal, sending 16-year-old Sugandha to the local market for fresh fish. It is a mundane errand that provides the entity with a specific opening. Near the water, Sugandha encounters a girl she doesn't recognize. She is strikingly beautiful, with heavy kohl around her eyes, standing perfectly still against the backdrop of the muddy bank. The girl speaks, asking Sugandha for a portion of the fish she's about to buy. The moment Sugandha looks away to address her sister, the girl is gone. There is no splash in the water and no sound of footsteps in the mud. Local lore identifies this figure as the Mecho Bhoot. This entity is defined by a singular predatory fixation on raw fish. It begins its hunt not with violence, but by establishing a psychological connection through a simple verbal request. As evening falls, Sugandha begins the walk home with her purchase. The path, which seemed communal and safe hours ago, is now isolated by the encroaching shadows of the trees. The air suddenly thickens with the stench of massive quantities of rotting fish, an odor so aggressive it seems to physically crowd the path. The assault turns physical as Sugandha feels a shadow pacing her. Without warning, a massive, rotting branch snaps overhead and shatters on the mud just inches in front of her. A voice finally emerges from the dark. It is disembodied and harsh, demanding the fish she is carrying. Sugandha reaches the house in a state of collapse. Her mother, seeing her daughter's terror, dismisses the experience as a hallucination brought on by the exhaustion of the move. The entity has successfully moved from a visual lure to a total sensory overwhelm, systematically stripping away Sugandha's sense of security. Late that night, the mother is woken by a rhythmic, wet sound coming from the kitchen, the sound of something being torn apart. She finds Sugandha sitting on the floor in the dark. The girl is hunched over, her face and hands covered in dark blood and scales, as she eats the raw market fish with a frantic animal hunger. Sugandha's movements are no longer those of a teenager. She snaps at the air and stares at her mother with a vacant, predatory intensity. She speaks with a voice that sounds layered and hollow, stating the other gave her fish, and she is choosing to stay with it forever. The Mecho Bhoot has achieved its endgame. It has hollowed out the victim's identity and filled the void with its own insatiable hunger. This entity is a specialist of the local wetlands, an embodiment of a specific consuming obsession that exists at the edge of the village. Looking back, the disaster was telegraphed early. The caretaker's detour, the window warning, and the impossible footprints were clear signals of a threat. The irreversible point was dismissing Sugandha's panic. This final node, favoring urban logic over rural evidence, left the door open for possession. The superstitions of the village serve as a survival manual. They provide necessary boundaries for living alongside entities that ignore the authority of the outside world.